Good day. Today's June 6th, 2020, and the video I did yesterday, which I forgot to give the date for once, was June 5th, of course. The reason I'm making one today is because there was something I realized that really fits in with all this. Yesterday's video was basically my version of how to fix the mess that we're in today. And today's video I'm going to put together some of the biggest pieces of why we have the mess, because you have to understand why in order to focus in on what the mess is, to really understand what I was talking about yesterday about how to fix it. I'm going to start off with an example that's kind of off the track, but it should give you an example of how some people fix things. This goes back to when I was in high school. Back then you were supposed to, if you were going to go to college, you were supposed to take a foreign language. And I'm really stupid when it comes to learning a foreign language. I have enough trouble with my own language, English, especially when it comes to writing. I get my adverbs and verbs mixed up in sentences, and I've had an English scholar review one of my books, and she got into the second page and said, "Oh, there's so many mistakes in this, I can't read this." You know, she was talking about me getting my adverbs and verbs mixed up and stuff like that. And her whole point was you can't read something that has a few grammatical errors in it. And that's much like a lot of people say that you can't follow somebody unless they have a lot of money, or you can't follow somebody unless they have a lot of degrees. But this example ties in. So the only reason I got through French class 1 was because I went to summer school. I think I got a D or real low, which, you know, lowers your average, because at that time you had to have a C average in order to get into college. And so I went to summer school, and I guess I must have gotten a D plus or something so I could take French 2. Well, I struggled through French 2, and I was probably getting about a D plus in it. And came the end of the year, it was discovered that our French teacher, who was from Canada, from France, the French-Canadian part of Canada, he didn't have all his accreditations, so he wasn't an official teacher. So they had a predicament. Here it was at the end of the year, all these students he had just gotten hired the year for that school year, so I was one of his first students. So anyway, so he wasn't an official teacher. So, of course, in today, what would they do? They would cover it up. They'd say, if something got out, they'd blame it on one of the school administrators instead of blaming it on the teacher who lied on his accreditations or whatever it was. But in those days, they still practiced the real law rather than covering up things. So it was decided to give everybody a C. So that is how I got past French 2 and how I was able to get into college. Now, personally, I think he was just as good as my first year French teacher. It wasn't really his poor teaching, it was my poor ability, my poor smarts to learn a foreign language. From the time I was 10 and a half until 14, I was in Japan. Now, I went to a military school, but I was exposed. I had a Japanese friend that was his dad was a civilian, so he actually went to our school. And we were good friends, and we'd run around, and he took me, we'd get on our bicycles and go all over, even some camping trips over the weekends. And I got to see more of Japan than, with a Japanese on a bicycle than most people who visit Japan for 4 years. But I was still not able to learn hardly any Japanese. I just don't have what it takes. Anyway, so that, of course, not having the ability to learn languages and or English language, I had some low grades, so a lot of my fellow students thought I was dumb, and I thought I was dumb too. And it wasn't till decades later that I realized, well, it's really what you got up here, not your degrees that you have. But unfortunately, a lot of people today never realize that in life. They still go by how much money somebody has, how many letters they have after their name, how many degrees, how many famous people know them, or how many that, well, that's more important than that person knowing famous people. Anyway, you get the point. In the long run, it was probably best for me to kind of have to give up college, because I was beginning to realize I could learn more not in college. But that hurt me in my career. But it's really what you have. So it's really what a person does with their life, more so than what accreditations they have. And this holds true with whether you're the Queen of England or a big executive in a corporation, or in the court system, like that link that I left in the video yesterday. The court system today is so corrupt that if you're in the court system and you are honest and trying to keep it according to the law instead of corruption, if you continue in that, you're going along with the corruption. So anyway, this brings me to what I wanted to say. Last week I sent out an email to my reading list about George Soros, who has a lot of money and does a lot of things in this country and all over the world because he has a lot of money. But in this email, this article that I wrote, I brought up the question of, money will only take you so far. So he must know or blackmail or something. He's got a hold on a lot of people more than just money. And I brought up his early parts of his life back during World War II when he worked with the Nazis. He's admitted this. although it's maybe hard to find those videos. But he, in his own words, he was saying that this was his finest hour and where he thought he did the most, working with the Nazis, turning in his fellow Jews. So anyway, yesterday evening or during the night or something, it was because of a dream. I woke up about 1 o'clock this morning, and it was no big deal about the dream except the end of it. I just kept reliving the end of the dream. It was just kept playing over the last, 5 minutes of the dream. It kept repeating, and when I woke, got to the point of it was a nightmare. I just couldn't get out of it. It was like Groundhog Day movie all over again, and so I woke up and I go, wow, I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again, and I'm not really getting through. And so I thought of Soros and his Nazi connection, and the solution, what I'm making this video about today, is the connection between Antifa, which, for those who know, is supposed to be anti-fascist. That's where Antifa comes from. And they seem to be running things in this country right now. And you need to look at the Antifa symbol, the flag. It's a flag. It says Antifa on the top of it. And how similar that was to the 1933 German Communist Party's flag and symbol. It was two flags. Theirs was all red, whereas Antifa is black and red. But the two symbols are so close that it's beyond coincidence. But of course, some people say, oh, it's just a coincidence. But if you listen to some of the Antifa speeches given by the big shots in Antifa, they're actually word for word some of the fascist speeches that were given previous to World War II and I guess during World War II also. So there's the connection. Antifa is not anti-fascist, it's fascist. And so there's the link between fascism, which people mostly think of the Germans as the fascists, at least in the 30s and 40s. But who was really behind it? And that's where I'm saying that George Soros knows. He knows the history. And that is Zionism, because the Zionists, the bankers, most of the bankers, at least in Europe and in New York City, are supportive of the Zionist principles, which, in case some of you don't know, is more or less a one world order run out of Jerusalem, run by mostly Jews. So there you have it. And how this ties in with my book, Simulation of 1944, is one of the biggest simulations, and this is what I thought of this morning when I woke out of my dream, was now simulation is just another term for false flag, which doesn't mean it's totally fake. It just means that the way it's presented to you is not really the way it happened. So one of the biggest false flags of 1945 was just the opposite of the assassination of JFK, meaning that it wasn't a lone gunman, that it was a whole bunch of big people, a cabal that was behind assassinating him. In 45, you have just the opposite. you have supposedly the fake story that Hitler committed suicide. But Hitler didn't. Hitler escaped, and it wasn't so much Hitler, but it was the Nazi Party came over to this country, but it really didn't have to, because the bankers were financing World War II, were financing Hitler in the early days just to create the World War II so they could have another war and make more money and get more power. So anyway, under Project Paperclip, the Nazis came over to America, and there's a lot of proof that the Bush family was tied in with all that, and actually George Bush, the senior, the first President Bush in this country, was actually just adopted, and he was actually from a German family, and he was raised until he was late teens or early 19 or something like that in Germany. And it's an interesting story, and it may be proof or not, but it doesn't really matter. What I'm trying to tell you here is the links between the Nazi Party, Zionism, and America, and that it continued in this country. And the main evidence of that today is Antifa movement, and how powerful they are, and how powerful George Soros is. Now, supposedly President Trump is trying to get Antifa labeled as a terrorist organization, which it is. And there's a lot of corporations and a lot of big rich people that are fighting that. And it remains to be seen whether it is labeled or is designated a terrorist organization. But that would be a great step forward into solving and getting what I'm talking about in this video, and then one that I did yesterday, and actually all my videos, get back to a true natural life rather than living under all these false flags. Every year you have more than one false flag, and in the last 5 years we've been living so many, and that's what the point of my book, Simulation of 1944, was, that we've been living under so many lies that it's a total simulation. But the 1944 false flag of Adolf Hitler being terminated covers up all that happened in this country, and how Zionism is basically leading the world. But if you go after all the people that are backing Antifa, the terrorist organization, and confiscate all their wealth, put a lot of them in jail, hang a few of them, we're well on the road, or on the tree of life rather than the tree of good and evil. Now, the important thing in this video is they're Luciferians, but the reason they have power is because they've offered you a deal, and all the U.S. citizens that are part of the corporation that they run, you've signed up for that, so that leaves them an out. That's how they continue. Because it's like a salesman saying, see over there in that pen, that cattle pen out there, we've got beautiful houses built in that cattle pen. We've got pretty women. We got handsome men. And if you just sign up, you can enjoy all that We've got a beach out there, a fake beach, and you can enjoy all that benefits and entitlements. All you have to do is sign on. And then you can go in that pen and be one of our chattel. And we'll take care of you and we will protect you. And we'll tell you to go hide under your bed from viruses and riots and stuff that we've created, of course. But you don't know that. And we'll have power over you, and won't it be great? Because true self-government takes self-responsibility. And that takes work. That requires you to be an asset, not a debt, not a debtor, not somebody that lives off somebody else, not a zombie. So that's it in a nutshell. Let's see, that's 21 minutes. I'm sure there's a lot more I was going to say, and I can't think of it. I wrote down, I should have made some more notes, but there it is, short and sweet. You got to get out of this simulation. The courts need to be the whole court system has to be replaced by honest men and women in it, not persons that are loyal to the British Bar Association. Good day.